Thank you very much for your answers. Let me say that I am all for streamlining reports because I know they take up a lot of time and can take creative energy away from doing other things. If you can work with the BSCC and CROB and come up with a streamlined report that gives us the useful information we need, we would love to consider it. And I really invite you guys to do that. Let me say, having read both of the last CROB reports, there are some things that could be done to make them more useful for me as a policymaker. There were a lot of things in the original, the CROB report on September 15th, of last year, 2013, that were full of very interesting observations, issues that needed to be resolved. I didn't see all of them in the report we just got. Mm-hmm. So, what's the follow-up? It would be really helpful if we could define a checklist of goals.
Well, I think
we'll report on those each time.
And that's one of the things that I've asked my staff to do now is set out the recommendations and basically reiterate, okay, this is what's happened on our past recommendations. We haven't done a great job doing that because, again, I'm the chair of the board. I have several other board members that are on the board. And so when the report gets written, it's a group effort, if you will. And so I don't have total authorship control. But what I will say is I think the board is in agreement that moving forward, we want to do exactly that. We want to make recommendations and continue to monitor those and the department's progress on them because we are frustrated too that things that we've talked about in the past tend to, raise up again a couple years later and still without resolution.
Yeah, or maybe nothing happened. And I would also like information. You tell us kind of what enrollment might be and what the actual participation is. I think we need information on completed GEDs, completed vocational certificates.
So that's the question. I don't know if you asked me in here or not, but I know I've talked about before, and I know Ms. Tidwell knows it's coming. And, that's the biggest probably criticism I have of their target population for rehabilitation is the way they define success. And so person in a program for one day, while I do not believe, and I think it's an unfair probably inference, that the department is intentionally taking an inmate, putting them in a program for a day, taking them out, putting another inmate in for a day to get their numbers up, that would be absurd. I do believe that we need a more meaningful, because even if you hit those 55 to 70,000 inmates that have a high risk or high to moderate risk and a high to medium need that the target population is going to end up being, if you can't say that they actually completed programs, where is the meaningful measure of success? Right. Do we have a number? So I know Ms. Tidwell, I think, is going to respond to that when it's her opportunity to do so, or if you want to do it now. She's sitting here, but that's up to you.
Well, I actually want to talk a little bit more about the reports that we're getting from CROB, because useful information is what we're trying to zero in on here.
Right.
So, for example, sometimes I don't know what you're talking about in the reports. Like the very last page of the appendix. Okay. I'm sorry I didn't read
go ahead.
Post-realignment substance abuse treatment program capacity, enrollment, and utilization. Now, last December it says the capacity was 1,286. Does that mean those are all the slots we have for 134,000 people in prison?
For that one program?
Well, it says substance abuse treatment program.
Go ahead.
I can address that. The slots are also, you double that for an annual capacity because the programs, if you're looking at the substance abuse program, that is a 5-month program, so we run 2 cycles of people through that, so it's actually twice that at this point. And we do have future plans for expansion.
Okay. That just seems like that seems very small to me, given that we're told that about 80% of the people in prison have issues related to substance abuse. So following on to that, my question would be, why wouldn't a priority be to scale up the certified substance abuse counselor vocational education programs so that we would have inmates who could try to bring to scale in every prison and be paid for doing so as a prison job, drug and alcohol abuse counseling?
We're actually in the process of finalizing a bid to go out for additional offender mentor certification programs at 3 additional locations. So we're looking at Avenal, Solano, and CCWF. Our current program is at CIW. So we are doing that this year, and I can inform the committee when that bid goes out. It is for the offender mentor certification program that would certify offenders to be alcohol and drug counselors both in prison and out.
Okay, that's great. Do you know what happened to the program at San Quentin, which was the starting program?
It was at Solano, and it switched off from year to year. It goes from a male institution to a female institution, so it's being run at a female institution right now.
Okay,
And then
but the problem with that is it's like a 2-year program at least, because you have to take the academic coursework and then you have to do the supervised clinical hours to get your...
It switches off after the course of the program over to the other institution to build our mentorship in both our female and males. And so that's why we're putting it out to bid to additional institutions now so that we can grow that population.
Okay, this is something I would like to follow up on.
Okay.
Because I think we need one of those programs in every one of our prisons. And then I did notice that the capacity went down, and the reason given was that the Central California Women's Facility, which Senator Mitchell and I are going to be visiting tomorrow, there were not enough target population inmates to fill 2 separate programs. Now, what does that mean? Because I can't believe, again, we have many thousand women there, that there aren't women that could use that program.
The target population is one that's defined by a 70% of our CASRA scores, the risk assessment scores, and a COMPASS score for a medium to high risk need. So those were the particular issue at that facility.
Okay. Just to flag another thing that I'd like you guys to look at, Ms. Tidwell and also Mr. Barton. Have we recalibrated eligibility? And I know that in the blueprint, it was very disturbing to me that it looked like our target population was really quite small. It was like 25% of people in their last 4 years in a reentry hub would receive some programming. And it would seem to me that we would really want to take our initial COMPASS assessment and in doing a plan. And I think we do make education available on a broader basis than that. And so how do we have a goal that accurately reflects even what we're doing now? Kind of how do we build on these things in a way that makes more sense? Okay. So that was.
Senator, I'm prepared to talk about the reentry hubs in the later agenda item later today when we have that discussion item.
Okay, thank you. Now, just to follow up again, did I understand that we don't pay for career technical education, but we do pay for the Prison Industry Association jobs?
What do you mean pay for it? I mean, we do.
They make the inmates that work in the prison jobs make some money.
I guess I'm not understanding what you mean by jobs. So vocation is it's like a school class.
Yeah, but the CalPIA
Yes, they don't get
work situations do.
I understand, right.
Yeah.
Those involve pay, but the vocational ones do not. They're getting the opportunity to learn a trade.
Okay. So have we considered have we considered really whether you couldn't do just as good career technical education in-house as opposed to CalPIA if we also gave the incentive of inmates being able to earn money if they got a certificate?
And that's the tension. I mean, I think that's the constant tension.
That's what I've been told.
Yeah,
It's the tension with education programs too.
Right. The educators, the vocational educators say we can do it. PIA says we can do it. Both of them have had, successes in different areas. It's not that you lack inmates to put in vocational programs. There are waiting lists in most places, if they've got the right population. So finding the inmates to go into the programs, I think, is less of the problem. Finding the right inmate to put in the right program at the right time is the bigger challenge. I'm sure the department would like to be able to do everything that PIA does. PIA has probably, I would say, a better incentive because obviously they're working with outside contractors, et cetera, to produce the goods. And then in many ways inside the state, they produce things that the state uses as well. So, could we do that in-house? Yes, but you again would be looking at having to replicate programs that they have in place. The department may not have the resources, and as it is, they're challenged in many of these areas in finding staff to work, for example, in Blythe, in vocational positions and things of that nature. So I don't know if they would be any better at overcoming those that PIA is, but that obviously is a discussion that you would have to have with both entities.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. I would like to add that we do have over 262 different career technical education programs throughout our system at all of our prisons, over 17 different types of education certificates or career technical education certificates that are gained. I'd be happy to provide the committee with a list of other numbers of how many certificates that we provide and the training that we do that is based on a national curriculum for education standards in those fields. So it's a little bit of apples to oranges when we're talking about PIA versus what we do.
I realize that.
Certification. Okay, just
and
want to
that's
make
why
that.
I just wondered if we'd had the full conversation about really how to structure, and I think perhaps it was the OIG that had the suggestion that you'd start in a career technical program and then move to a PIA program.
Well, if there
Or
were
what
both
you
in
might do.
existence, right. I mean, that's what I was thinking. If you already have PIA there and they're doing something, why would you not make that available and make a plan
yeah.
to get there?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. But then again, on page 44, where it says a post-realignment career technical education program, capacity, enrollment, and utilization, the capacity is about 7,600 slots.
Right.
Again, that's out of 134,000 people that we have in prison. So say 8,000 slots for 134,000 people means a lot of people that were really not at scale. And then it says the enrollment is 68% of capacity and utilization is 67%, which seems to mean that the slots aren't filled.
Well, that was a September report you're still looking at?
Well,
Or the most recent?
this is March 15th this year.
Okay.
But it was the December, but only last December, 2013.
So those are all snapshots.
Yeah, they're snapshots, but they indicate problems, don't
Oh,
they?
no, I agree. They're not fully, they're not fully staffed. They're not all fully used
Yeah.
at this point.
And
Yeah.
that's part of the ramp-up process through the blueprint that we've been working on implementation and full utilization over the last couple of years, and running into some of the issues that the Inspector General pointed out around the 3-judge panel process and not being able to transfer people to the right program at the right time. Since February, I think you're going to see some differences in our utilization upcoming since we've had that decision come down.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Yes, it's going to help tremendously
yeah.
our ability to fill our current programs and then to be able to look ahead at what our next steps of rehabilitation programs would be. because this is just getting to be fully implemented from the blueprint.
Okay, thank you. And then I wonder, there was some talk about the compass assessments and how they're used. And, I'd like to ask the OAG, you raised some issues. What percentage of people are having a compass assessment that actually results in a usable program plan?
Well, the number is at 55%, I think, currently of the male population that has a compass done, and about 97% has had a risk assessment done, which is done earlier. And so, their numbers of compass assessments are going up. In answer to your second question, it depends on how you define it. If you say that someone is compassed and what I would think of as a comprehensive plan to get them from the time they're in prison to their out date and what their rehabilitation program is going to be along the way, I would say it's zero at this point. Now, I know that we talked about the pilot project, and I know that the department didn't see enough efficacy in pursuing that, and believes that there is going to be a component within SOMS that's at least being discussed as filling that component, that case plan component. But again, Ms. Tidwell may have more information for the committee on what the department's plan is.
And, I agree with you, what the Inspector General said as far as, but the reentry compasses were at about 97% complete as far as people who are coming out onto parole under CDCR's jurisdiction. So those numbers are quite high as far as being able to determine where someone's needs are in the community once they parole. And understanding that we have a fixed budget and a focused population of which we are attempting to address at this point in time.
Okay. Any other what?
I actually would like to address the length of stay that the Inspector General brought up about the 1 day to meet our rehabilitation goals.
Yes.
I think that obviously he acknowledged that we are not placing inmates in a program for a day to move them to count them towards our rehabilitative goals. There's a variety of reasons why someone may be moved out of a program within a short period of time. Some of them are reflective of the person's own behavior. Other reasons include a reevaluation of testing scores or aptitude for certain academic or career technical education programs. We agree that the method for counting 1 day as successfully meeting the rehabilitative needs of an inmate is not acceptable. And we're currently reviewing our program data for counting rule appropriateness and for program outcome information. Just as an example, I can share with you some of our initial findings. For the combined academic and vocational programs, we looked at data between January 2010 and December 2013, and approximately 42% of the non-completers, because that's what we're talking about here, were in our programs for over 180 days. Another 20% account for the numbers of days being between 90 and 180, and then a combined 22% reflect the days, program days between 31 and 90 days. So we're digging into the data and looking at it, and only about 14% were in a program between 1 and 30 days for various reasons, as I mentioned before. We have directed a full-time staff person to resolving our counting issues, and happy to provide this committee updates as we redefine our computation for program success in order for us to ensure that we are meeting the goals of rehabilitation efforts as established by the legislature. So as we move forward, we're happy to include you in those conversations. A lot of the stuff that we're talking about comes up at our director stakeholder advisory groups, of which you have membership on, and so happy to keep you informed as our process.
And And that's wonderful to hear, because that's exactly what CROB and the IG's office has been recommending, that there be a percentage-based outcome evaluation of how long are people staying in when they're not completing, and certainly can give more meaning to what we mean by success at the end of the day when we come back and evaluate that target population. So, I'm listening and for the first time hearing these numbers and writing them down myself, and so I think that's very promising, and I commend Ms. Tidwell for making the effort to have that done, and I look forward to, in the future, having those types of statistics to be able to report.
I think that's very good. However, in the end, we also need a computation of how many people complete.
Oh,
right.
And if there are incentives for completion, milestone credits that can be used in a variety of ways, and because that is what, as a policymaker, I understand, that's what I work on as a member of the Education Committee, how many people graduate from high
Right.
school, not did they stay from 1
Right.
to 90 days or 2,000 days, did they leave with something they can use on the outside?
And we have those numbers now.
yes. We have all
Okay,
those numbers
and
now.
I know you're going to give that to me, and I thank
Yes.
you very much. But what I would like is for CROB to report it in one nice little chart so that we can look at it
I'll tell my staff.
twice a year and be able to tell.
I'll make a deal with you. If it's once a year, I guarantee you will have that chart.
Oh, if it's once a year, can we design the report so that we get everything we
You
need?
can give as much
Oh, let's
input
think
as you
about
like.
that. Okay.
And
Okay.
I'm sorry, Senator, just wanted to address one other thing that I would be remiss if I didn't bring it up, about the incentive-based system to encourage our increased completion rates.
Yeah.
To that end, we've established an ad hoc committee through our division's stakeholder advisory group that's made up of the Association of Counties, Center for Employment Opportunities, some providers, Health Right 360, mental health systems, and San Bernardino, some research component piece of it, and have gotten a group together to discuss how we go about implementing a programs incentive contracting, performance-based contracting, incentives for people to participate. So all of that work is currently being done. They've had one meeting so far. Another one has been scheduled. Looking forward to a report out at our next advisory committee. So we'll keep you informed on how that
Okay,
goes.
and this relates to the CROB recommendation that the department implement an incentive-based system
Yes, ma'am.
to encourage substance abuse treatment completion.
Yes.
And all of those recommendations that we made, Senator, are hopefully going to be reported on in our next CROB report for this very reason, that the department is now working on several of them, and we hope to be able to report that.
I think that would be excellent.
Yep.
And maybe members of the committee could let you know some additional items. Like I know there were issues around training and other things that were in the report that we received in September.
Right.
So we, I think we need to look at all of that. Ms. Tidwell, could you then tell me when this committee could expect to receive recommendations that we could enact?
Oh, timeframes. I'm not sure about timeframes. I can check back with staff and see what they've committed to. We've only had the first meeting so far of this new group that's been formed, so I'll follow up and get you some timeframes
I
associated
would
with
totally
it.
appreciate that.
Okay.
And let me say, one of the frustrations often in dealing with any large institution is that the meetings stretch out over years, and by the time something is recommended, people forgot what the problem was. And I would rather see you take on fewer things and work in a really fast weekly meeting time frame, and let's see if we can put things in place that we can start implementing. And I just appreciate that you're bringing the energy to solving these problems that you are. And but it would be great if we could have something before we have to adopt the budget.
Okay, I'll let you know. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from
Thank you.
committee members?
Thank you.
Thank you both very, very much. And